an 80% reduction in concussions for a Division I football program sustainably over 10 years. Through these methodologies, you're able to get, these players back to the field of play more quickly, also safely. I've personally experienced with Dr. Clark's research in the neurovisual training has been a substantial prevention protocol for the University of Cincinnati athletics. And, when I'm sure Dr. Clark mentioned this, but, when he has publications that show a correlation of an 80% reduction in concussions for a Division I football program sustainably over 10 years is unbelievably remarkable. Even from the perspective of a former Division I football player, I mean, I appreciate that. That is, taking the philosophy of being a brain advocate for your athlete as seriously as possible.
Oh yeah. I mean, huge props to University of Cincinnati for funding and making sure that program happened, and for Dr. Clark to creating it. When he told me that 80% stat, and then I think he said over the 10 years that they were running that program, there was only ever one student athlete that had post-concussion syndrome symptoms for more than 3 weeks. Like, I thought he was, if I didn't really trust him, I would have thought he was lying. Like, if I didn't really trust him, if I didn't know that his heart was in the right place and he was a solid guy, I would have thought he was lying, because it just seems too good to be true.
Absolutely. And that's kind of, and that's kind of a battle that we've seen with spreading awareness is, people hear some of these statistics that we present, and they're like, no way, that can't be real. And so, as soon, if you only have that 30 seconds to grab somebody's attention and you haven't built up that trust with them, it's hard once, those are your punchlines, and
right.
And they're not being received because of just how remarkable they really are. And, from the rehabilitation perspective, I'm sure he also mentioned, but I love throwing these punchlines out because his research is just so great, is with the 8% prevention with the neurovisual training protocols and methodologies, like I said earlier, you can't fully reduce the risk of incurring a traumatic brain injury. However, in the unfortunate circumstance that someone does incur one, the same prevention methodologies used as rehabilitation has been published to decrease the return to play time for athletes by 50%. The national average, I believe, is around 13 and a half days post-concussion to return to the field of play, where at the University of Cincinnati, it's around 6 days. And if you think about that from like a football perspective, in college, you play Saturday to Saturday, usually. And so that's 7 days. Well, your best player, who plays the most snaps, typically has just based on pure play volume, has a higher risk of incurring a concussion based on the play volume compared to other players. And so, unfortunately, if one of those players who has that and higher play volume gets injured, well, through these methodologies, you're able to get, these players back to the field of play more quickly, also safely. And that comes down to, dollars and cents for the athletic department in a whole, because it comes down to games won.
Right. Well, and for the individual athletes, it's not just being able to play. Like you said, it's being able to play safely, being able to play without having to have the pressure of, man, I got to get back on the field, and then pushing through something you probably shouldn't push through. Right. So my wife, is 120 pounds soaking wet. She's definitely not a Division I athlete, but something that really excited me talking to Dr. Clark about the concussion prevention is that for her, it would be concussion prevention, right? These same neurovisual exercises that she does every day now for about 15, 20 minutes, because we have a Dynavision board, right? And then we're going to be using that every day for a little while as well, because because in my mind, if it can help, why not? So that'll be a whole nother conversation. But because she does these rehabilitative exercises, prevention exercises every day, now I'm not paranoid that she's going to get another concussion, or at least if she gets another one, she's going to be able to bounce back from it faster and recover from it faster. Before understanding any of this, I was doing ridiculous amounts of research into Volvos and Subarus and trying to find, exactly like the like straining at gnats, right? Just trying to see the safest car that I could put my wife in. I wanted to buy her the Batmobile, right? And put her in a tank, like a 1990 Suburban or something that just wouldn't even budge when you hit it, because I didn't know what else to do, right? I mean, that's when we were like, I was only looking at ways to keep it from getting worse because I didn't know that there was anything that could heal her. So we were like hemorrhaging cash on supplements and different, nutritional plans and some things that, were helpful, but most of it was just me flailing around hopeless and then finding actual treatments that were effective, which is what you're talking about with prevention. It was a huge game changer for us.
Yeah, and really the analogy is strength and conditioning, right? It's, people go to the gym and do strength and conditioning to get stronger and quicker and more healthy. If someone who's never exercised before, unfortunately tears their hamstring or something, usually that's a 4 to 6 week recovery. Well, why do you see people who routinely do strength and conditioning bounce back between 1 and 2 weeks? Well, it's because when they go through the rehab, the person who's never done strength and conditioning before has to spend the first 3 weeks training their body how to bear load, how to do proper technique, and things like that. So the athlete or even non-athlete who does routine strength and conditioning knows how to do that, knows how to do squats, knows how to, do leg curls and other, pistol squats or something like that. And that cuts so much time away because their body is already adapted to the muscle repair through the strength and conditioning. So it's a similar, I believe it's a strong analogy, and that's kind of the analogy I typically go with just to help conceptualize the untraditional methods that Dr. Clark has created and that we use at the University of Cincinnati. And it really is just remarkable. And another statistic that I'm not sure if Dr. Clark threw out or not, but is very important, is that, now I may unfortunately mess these statistics up, but I think the entire population of the United States has about a 1% risk of incurring a traumatic brain injury just on a daily basis. If you're an athlete at the University of Cincinnati, you do not have a significantly greater risk of incurring a traumatic brain injury compared to the normal population, which in athletics is huge. I mean, that is a huge statistic. So that just goes to show you that the things that Dr. Clark is leading at UC is, like I said earlier, being the best brain advocate for his athletes. And I know I'm touching a little bit more on the athletic side because I played at UC. I worked under, I did the neurovisual training while I was an athlete, and then trained under Dr. Clark for 2.5 years. But we also, when I trained under Dr. Clark, like I said, he was referred non-athlete patients from MDs to help with their rehabilitation. And I was also a part of that. And so I could see the testament of his work for somebody who hasn't done neurovisual training as a preventative measure and seen its effects as well.